I spilled my tea on the CEO's son at 9:12 a.m. By 9:13, I was terminated. There was no spectacle, no slow motion, no dramatic pause, just a paper cup, a sharp turn, and a man convinced his surname placed him above consequences. My name is Mila. I was 34 years old, and until that moment, a senior operations manager at Hartwell Systems. I had worked there for 8 years. I designed the reporting systems that kept the board reassured. I resolved supplier issues before they turned into legal disputes. When problems surfaced, I was the person people contacted, quietly, often after hours. That morning, I was heading to the lobby cafe to grab mint tea before a 9:30 meeting with an external investor. The meeting was mandatory. I had scheduled it weeks earlier. The CEO had personally approved it and asked me to lead the walkthrough because, as he put it, I understood the numbers better than anyone. As I turned the corner near the executive wing, reviewing notes on my phone, someone rushed out of a glass office. We collided. The lid came off. Warm, pale green tea splashed across a navy suit jacket and crisp white shirt. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then he slowly looked down at himself, as if inspecting damage to an expensive car. "Are you serious?" he said. I recognized him immediately, Chris Hartwell, the CEO's son. Recently appointed Director of Strategic Growth, a title broad enough to mean everything and nothing. He had been with the company for 6 months, long enough to demand a corner office and short enough to still ask basic questions during meetings. "I'm so sorry," I said right away. "That was my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I'll get napkins." "Do you have any idea who I am?" he snapped. People nearby froze. 2 assistants stopped mid-step. A finance analyst pretended to scroll on her phone. "Yes," I replied calmly. "I do. And I'm really sorry. I'll cover the cleaning." He gave a short, sharp laugh. "Pay? You think this is about money?" Tea dripped from his sleeve onto the marble floor. "You're always in the way," he continued, louder now. "Always rushing around like you run this place." That wasn't accurate. I was rarely in the executive wing. Today was different because I had an investor meeting, one Chris had already skipped twice. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes, I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'll take care of this." "You don't tell me what you have," he interrupted. "You don't tell me anything." He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne, expensive and overpowering. "You're fired," he said. The words didn't register immediately. My thoughts lagged like an echo delayed. "I'm sorry?" I said. "You heard me. Fired, effective immediately." He raised his voice. "Security." Heads turned. Someone actually gasped. "I don't report to you," I said, more instinct than planning. "My role reports to—" "I'm the CEO's son," he shouted. "I can fire whoever I want." 2 security guards approached, uncertain but compliant. They knew me. I had brought them coffee during late nights. One of them hesitated. "Sir," he said carefully, "Miss Mila is—" "Out," Chris snapped. "Badge. Now." My hands shook as I unclipped my badge and handed it over. 8 years reduced to a piece of plastic. "Escort her," Chris said, already turning away, "and tell facilities this floor needs cleaning." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Shock does that. You go silent. I walked back to my desk with a guard following behind. I packed my laptop bag, my notebook, and the framed photo of my sister and me at her graduation. I didn't take much. There wasn't much that was personal. By 9:22, I was in the elevator heading down to the lobby. The investor meeting was set for 9:30. I thought about texting to cancel. Then I didn't. The doors opened into the cool, echoing lobby. I stepped out, gripping my bag, my heart still racing. That's when I saw him near the seating area by the windows. Jonathan Reed. Private equity. Major stakeholder. The reason the company survived the last acquisition. The reason my meeting mattered. He noticed me and smiled. "Mila," he said warmly. "Ready for our meeting?" I swallowed. "I'm sorry," I said. "He just fired me." Jonathan blinked once, then laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just a quiet, surprised chuckle. "Did he?" he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen was already on. He tilted it toward me. A photo filled the display. "Is this the guy who fired you?" Jonathan asked. I looked at the screen. It showed Chris mid-rant, tea-stained sleeve visible, mouth open, finger raised. In that moment, the day felt far from finished. Jonathan didn't put his phone away. He studied the image a second longer, then looked back at me. His expression no longer amused. It had sharpened into something intentional. "Come sit," he said, gesturing to the seating area by the windows. Before security decides this lobby is off limits to both of us. I hesitated. Technically, I was no longer an employee, but the guards at the desk didn't move. They were watching Jonathan, not me. Everyone was. I sat. Jonathan took the chair across from mine, set his briefcase down, and crossed his legs calmly. I assume this termination happened just now, less than 10 minutes ago, I said. Reason? I exhaled. I spilled tea on Chris. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. That's it. He said it was the final straw. I kept my voice neutral. Emotional phrasing wouldn't help. He didn't mention performance. No HR present, no paperwork. Jonathan nodded slowly. That aligns. I looked at him. Aligns with what? 6 months of disruption, he replied. Missed meetings, exaggerated forecasts, sudden authority he hasn't earned. I stiffened. You've noticed. I invest in companies, Jonathan said evenly. I notice when numbers stop matching behavior. He leaned forward slightly. You were supposed to walk me through the operational risk controls today. I specifically asked for you. Yes, I said. That's why I was in the executive wing. Jonathan gave a faint smile. Chris told his assistant I canceled. My stomach dropped. You didn't. No, Jonathan said. I arrived early. I wanted to observe. That explained the photo. I saw him shouting, Jonathan continued. I didn't step in? Not yet. Why take the picture? I asked. Because people like Chris rewrite events quickly, he said. Photos slow that down. There was a pause. The lobby felt unusually quiet. Did you know, Jonathan asked, that Chris approved a vendor contract last week without legal review? I blinked. That can't be right. Policy requires 2 approvals. Legal and compliance, Jonathan finished. Neither signed. My chest tightened. That contract exposes the company to liability. Yes, Jonathan said. And when I asked about it yesterday, Chris said you approved the workflow. That's not true, I said immediately. I never saw it. I know, Jonathan replied. The metadata shows your name was added afterward. Something cold settled in my stomach. He used me as cover. He tried, Jonathan corrected, poorly. I stared down at the marble floor. 8 years of fixing problems quietly, and now I was being framed as one. Jonathan watched me closely. Did HR speak with you? No. Did anyone ask for your account? No. Were you offered severance? I almost laughed. They walked me out. Jonathan leaned back. That's a procedural failure, a serious one. I lowered my voice. What happens now? That depends, he said, on what you know. I met his eyes. I know operations. I know compliance. Heck, I know where shortcuts were taken because deadlines mattered more than policy. Were those shortcuts documented, he asked. Not formally, I said, but I raised concerns more than once. To whom? The CEO. His father. Jonathan nodded. And his response? He told me to be flexible, said Chris was learning. Jonathan sighed. That's the issue with legacy companies. Nepotism often hides behind patience. He checked his watch. I have a board call in 12 minutes. My heart skipped. About the company? Yes. I hesitated, then said it. He's not ready. Jonathan looked at me sharply. Chris. Yes, I said. And firing me won't change that. Jonathan stood. Walk with me. We crossed the lobby together. Conversations faded as we passed. I felt exposed, but unexpectedly steady. Jonathan stopped near the glass doors. I'm requesting an internal review immediately. The board met until midnight, he said. His voice sounded tired but steady. Chris has been removed from all operational authority. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a mug I hadn't touched. Temporarily? I asked. Jonathan didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. Permanently. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. And his father? Still on the board, Jonathan said, but sidelined. He didn't contest it. That part hurt more than I expected. Not because I admired the CEO, but because it confirmed something I'd suspected for years. Silence is also a decision. What happens to me? I asked. You're no longer an employee, Jonathan said, but you're also not the issue. Legal agrees. I closed my eyes. That's not the same as protection. No, he agreed, which is why we need to be exact. An hour later, I joined a secure video call with external counsel, Jonathan, and 2 board members I'd only seen in quarterly meetings. They were courteous, formal, restrained. We want to understand your role, one said, and your concerns. I documented process gaps, I replied. I escalated risks, I followed policy, and when policy was bypassed, I objected and I was excluded. There was a pause. Do you have evidence? Another board member asked. Yes, I said, but But I haven't shared it yet. Jonathan gave a slight nod on screen. We're not asking you to, he said. Not today. That mattered. Pressure would have felt like coercion. This felt measured. After the call ended, Jonathan stayed on. They're nervous, he said. About lawsuits? I asked. About exposure, he corrected. Investors are watching. Employees are watching. This is about perception now. I leaned back. Chris focused on optics and ignored infrastructure, Jonathan said. That's why this collapsed so quickly. At 11:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a calendar invite. Subject, investor briefing, and revised host, Jonathan Reed. Attendees, board, legal, audit firm. Optional. Meal that was new. Do you want me there? I asked. Yes, Jonathan said without hesitation, but not to speak. To observe? I asked. To be seen, he corrected. I dressed carefully, not formal, not casual. Neutral. Credible. I didn't want attention. I wanted presence. The building felt different when I walked in. Quieter. Tighter. Security nodded without smiling. People whispered instead of staring. Chris wasn't there. In the conference room, Jonathan stood at the head of the table. Screens showed timelines, process maps, approval flows. No accusations, just structure. This isn't about one person, Jonathan told the room. It's about a governance failure. I recognized my work in the slides. Refined, framed with context. No one mentioned my name, but it was implied. Questions came quickly. How was this missed? Why weren't controls triggered? What did compliance report? Jonathan answered calmly. When he didn't know, he said so. At one point, a board member looked at me. Miss Mila, you work closest to operations. Did you raise concerns? Yes, I said, multiple times. To whom? Leadership, I replied, with documentation. The room went still. Thank you, he said. That's all. When the meeting ended, no one lingered, no side conversations, no jokes. Jonathan walked me to the elevator. They'll release a statement this afternoon, he said. Neutral language, internal review, no names. And Chris? I asked. He's been advised to retain counsel, Jonathan said. He won't contact you again. I believed him. As the doors closed, Jonathan added, There's something else. What? I asked. I've been asked to recommend an interim operations advisor. I laughed once, surprised. You already have consultants. I do, Jonathan said, but none who understand this company's blind spots the way you do. I looked at him. That would put me right back in the middle. Yes, he replied. With protection and leverage. I didn't respond right away. I need time, I said. Of course, Jonathan said, but consider it. That afternoon, the statement went public. Hartwell Systems announces leadership changes amid internal review. No accusations, no blame that reacted anyway. By close, the stock dipped. Not catastrophic, not yet. At 6:03 p.m., I received one last message. Unknown number. You think you won? I stared at the screen, then blocked it. Chris had believed power came from volume. He hadn't understood what happens when the room stops paying attention. And for the first time since the tea spill, I knew exactly where this was going. 3 weeks later, Hartwell Systems looked intact from the outside. The logo was still on the building. The website still promised innovation and stability. Press releases spoke of a renewed commitment to governance. From a distance, you could almost believe nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. I accepted Jonathan's offer to return, not as an employee, but as an independent interim operations advisor, contracted directly through the board, fixed term, clear scope, legal protection written with precision that left no room for interpretation. Chris was gone, not announced publicly, but removed, his access terminated, his title erased from internal directories, his office cleared quietly after hours. His father remained on the board, though diminished. He no longer spoke first or last. On my first day back, no one applauded, no one whispered. People simply nodded as I passed. Respect looks different when it's earned under pressure. I didn't take my old desk. I worked from a small glass-walled conference room. Transparency mattered now. The audit findings arrived in stages. Vendor contracts approved without oversight. Expense accounts misclassified. Internal transfers justified with vague descriptions. None of it dramatic on its own. Together, undeniable. I didn't lead the investigation. I didn't need to. My role was simpler and harder, to explain how it had been possible. This wasn't one bad actor, I told the board in a closed session. It was unchecked authority combined with willful blindness. No one disagreed. Regulators arrived a week later, calm, methodical. They asked for timelines. I gave them facts. They asked for context. I gave them process. Chris's name came up often. Mine didn't. That was the difference between noise and credibility. On a Thursday afternoon, Jonathan asked me to stay after a meeting. They're preparing a settlement, he said. Civil penalties, leadership restructuring. And Chris? I asked. Jonathan exhaled. He won't work in this industry again. I nodded. There was no satisfaction in it, just closure. What will you do next? He asked. I'm done here, I said, once the transition plan is complete. You could stay, Jonathan offered. Permanent role. Real authority this time. I shook my head. This place needs new trust. I'd always be part of the old story. He studied me, then smiled. I expected that answer. On my last day, I packed nothing. I'd learned that lesson already. I walked the floor slowly. People stopped me, not to gossip, but to say thank you. Quietly, sincerely. Claire from finance hugged me in the hallway. You changed how things work, she said. No, I replied. You did. You just didn't think you could. In the lobby, I paused near the cafe where everything had started. I ordered mint tea. I smiled at the irony and didn't spill a drop. As I turned to leave, I saw him across the street. Chris, no suit, no entourage. Phone pressed to his ear, pacing. He looked smaller, less certain. He didn't see me. I didn't stop. Revenge doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like becoming irrelevant to the person who tried to undo you. That evening, Jonathan called. They approved the final report, he said. Your name is clear, publicly and privately. Good, I said. There's something else, he added. I'm starting a new portfolio company, smaller, tighter controls. I want you to consult on the structure. I smiled. Send me the details. After the call, I sat on my balcony and watched the city settle into night. Cars, lights, people moving forward, unaware of the quiet collapses and rebuilds happening every day. Chris had shouted, Do you even know who I am? I did, and now no one needed to ask. All for you.